You're standing in the opulent halls of Versailles in 1785, and you witness something so seemingly trivial that you'd dismiss it as palace gossip. A mirror shatters in the queen's private chambers. 7 years of bad luck, the servants whisper. But what unfolds next isn't just superstition, it's the beginning of a chain reaction that will topple the most powerful monarchy in Europe and send shockwaves across the world. The crash of that mirror didn't just scatter glass across marble floors, it shattered the carefully constructed illusion of royal invincibility that had sustained the French monarchy for centuries. What you're about to discover isn't just another tale of royal excess or political miscalculation. It's the story of how a single moment of vanity became the catalyst for revolution, how personaled into national catastrophe obsession morphe, and how the reflection in a broken mirror revealed the fractures that would ultimately destroy an empire. Before we dive into this forgotten story of power and destruction, if you're fascinated by the hidden moments that changed history, consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more content like this. And please comment below to let me know where you're listening from. It's incredible that we can explore these pivotal moments together from different corners of the world, connected by our shared curiosity about the events that shaped our past. The mirror in question wasn't just any ordinary-looking glass, it was a masterpiece of Venetian craftsmanship, standing nearly 8 feet tall and framed in gold that had been meticulously carved by the finest artisans of the age. This wasn't merely a tool for checking one's appearance, it was a symbol of absolute power, a testament to the wealth and sophistication that set the French court apart from every other royal household in Europe. But mirrors, you see, were more than decorative objects in the 18th century. They were revolutionary technology that had only recently become available to the wealthy elite. For centuries, human beings had glimpsed their reflections in still water or polished metal. The ability to see yourself clearly, completely, and whenever you desired was a luxury so profound that it bordered on the mystical. Marie Antoinette had developed what courtiers whispered was an unhealthy relationship with this particular mirror. Every morning, she would spend hours before its surface, not just arranging her elaborate hairstyles or selecting her jewelry, but engaging in what seemed like conversations with her own reflection. Palace servants reported hearing her voice echoing from her chambers during these private sessions, though no one else was present. The queen's obsession with her appearance wasn't vanity in the way we might understand it today. It was a desperate attempt to maintain control in a world where her every gesture was scrutinized, criticized, and dissected by enemies she couldn't see. The mirror became her confidant, her advisor, her only honest companion in a court filled with sycophants and conspirators. On that fateful morning in November 1785, Marie Antoinette approached her beloved mirror as she had countless times before. But something was different. The reflection staring back at her seemed distorted, showing not the radiant queen she expected to see, but a woman whose eyes betrayed the fear and uncertainty that she worked so desperately to hide from the world. In a moment of rage, or perhaps desperation, the queen struck the mirror with her jeweled hand. The glass exploded into thousands of fragments, each piece reflecting a fractured image of the woman who had just destroyed the one thing that had given her comfort in an increasingly hostile world. The servants who rushed into the chamber found their queen standing amid the glittering shards, blood trickling from cuts on her hand, staring at the now empty golden frame that had once held her most trusted companion. But the real damage wasn't to her flesh or even to the priceless mirror itself. The real damage was to the invisible threads that held the monarchy's mystique together. Within hours, whispers of the shattered mirror had spread through every corridor of Versailles, like poison seeping through marble veins. The servants who witnessed the scene couldn't contain their shock. They had never seen their queen in such a raw, unguarded state of fury. But it wasn't just the violence of the moment that terrified them. It was what they glimpsed in those scattered fragments before they were swept away. Each shard reflected something different, not just Marie Antoinette's face, but glimpses of scenes that seemed to come from somewhere else entirely. Some servants swore they saw images of angry crowds, of buildings burning, of a wooden platform surrounded by jeering masses. The queen's personal physician, Dr. Lasson, was summoned immediately to tend to her wounds. As he carefully extracted glass fragments from her palm, he noticed something that would haunt him for the rest of his days. The cuts formed a pattern, not random slashes from flying glass, but deliberate lines that resembled the map of France itself, with Paris marked by the deepest wound. Marie Antoinette's behavior in the weeks following the incident became increasingly erratic. She began avoiding mirrors entirely, covering every reflective surface in her chambers with heavy black cloth. When courtiers asked about this strange new habit, she would only whisper about the faces she had seen in the fragments, faces of people she didn't recognize but somehow feared with every fiber of her being. The psychological impact rippled outward from the queen to infect the entire court. Nobles who had once competed for her attention now found themselves unconsciously stepping back when she entered a room. There was something broken about her presence now, something that made even her closest allies uncomfortable. The woman who had once embodied the glamour and power of the French monarchy now seemed to carry an aura of impending doom. King Louis XIV, already struggling with his own inadequacies as a ruler, became paralyzed by his wife's transformation. He had always relied on Marie Antoinette's confidence and social grace to mask his own shortcomings in court politics. Now, faced with a queen who jumped at shadows and spoke in riddles about visions in broken glass, he found himself more isolated than ever. The timing couldn't have been worse. France was already teetering on the edge of financial collapse, with mounting debts from costly wars, and a tax system that exempted the very people who could afford to pay. The common people were struggling with food shortages and economic hardship, while the royal court continued its extravagant lifestyle. But now, something had shifted in the psychological foundation of royal authority. The servants who had witnessed the mirror's destruction carried the story beyond the palace walls, and it began to mutate as it spread through the streets of Paris. In the taverns and marketplaces, the tale grew more elaborate with each telling. The shattered mirror had become something far more dangerous than broken glass. It had become a symbol of a monarchy so fragile that even its own queen couldn't bear to look at herself. A symbol of an empire built on illusion finally confronting the harsh reality of its own decay. When the revolution finally erupted in 1789, those who had heard the story of the broken mirror weren't surprised. They had seen the cracks long before the final collapse. Marie Antoinette's moment of desperate rage had revealed what courtiers and commoners alike had sensed but never dared voice: that the divine right of kings was nothing more than an elaborate performance, and the performers were breaking under the weight of their own deception. As Marie Antoinette faced the guillotine in 1793, some witnesses claimed they saw something familiar in her eyes, the same fractured reflection that had stared back at her from those scattered shards 8 years earlier. The queen who had once spent hours gazing at her own image now faced her final moment without a mirror in sight, yet perhaps seeing herself more clearly than ever before. The mirror that toppled an empire teaches us that history's greatest catastrophes often begin not with grand proclamations or dramatic gestures, but with quiet moments of human frailty. Sometimes it takes just one crack in the facade to reveal that even the mightiest empires are built on foundations of glass. Marie Antoinette's shattered reflection became France's shattered monarchy, proving that when those in power can no longer bear to look at themselves, revolution becomes inevitable.